Welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. My name is Jamie Irvin, and today we are live. If you haven't checked out our weekly podcast, head over to heavydutypartsreport.com and check out our interviews. Every Monday, we're dropping a new episode where we're interviewing heavy-duty parts specialists and industry experts to talk about the heavy-duty parts industry, how to lower cost per mile for fleets. It's a great show. Check it out, heavydutypartsreport.com. You can follow the show there for free. Also, because we are live today, I wanted to make sure to remind everyone that if you would like to make a comment, if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, ask a question in today's episode, by all means, comment on the platform that you're watching on, and we will do our best to get you into the show and answer your comments or address any questions that you may have. So today we're talking about one of the big problems in the trucking industry, and that is that we need to find more repair technicians. And we also need to find more parts technicians. And of course, training is a big component in solving this problem and bringing people into the industry. We've got to train more people. In a lot of ways, we have more people leaving the industry because they're retiring than we have coming in. And so this is a challenge. We've talked about it on the show before, and it definitely affects the independent repair side of the business. It affects the truck dealership side of the business. It affects repair and parts. And there are new technologies that are coming that are being leveraged to try to help solve this problem. For example, augmented reality, which is what we're going to talk about today. So to learn more, I invited Matt Johnston, Director of Commercial Solutions at Design Interactive, to speak with us today. Matt directs the product development and oversees commercial business development, sales, and marketing for Design Interactive. His primary focus is something called AUGMENTOR, which we're going to learn all about today. And this is an instructor-led, self-guided training platform enhanced by augmented reality, which is really cool. I'm really excited about learning about this. He also has taken the lead on the Augmented and Virtual Reality Training Task Force for the Technology and Maintenance Council for the American Trucking Association. So I think Matt is the guy that we want to talk to about this. Matt, welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Reports. So happy to have you here on our live stream today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Jamie. Happy to be here.
So you've been focused on this, applying this technology to our industry. And I think to start off, for those who may not be familiar with the differences, let's talk about what's different between augmented reality and virtual reality. For those of us who have not a lot of experience with it, I don't think we know the difference.
No, it's a great question, Jamie, and I get asked it a lot. In fact, in my role at the TMC, under the Future Truck Committee on the Augmented and Virtual Reality Training Task Force, I always make sure to start with answering this exact question, frankly. But there's two main differences that I would say we could focus on. First, augmented reality overlays digital information on the real world, right? While virtual reality immerses you completely in a virtual world. So let's imagine you're wearing an augmented reality headset, on your head here. You're standing in front of a tractor, and let's say the wheel's off and you're looking at an air disc brake. It's like a window. So you see the tractor, you see the actual brake, but the augmented reality might show in sequence a floating model of each part representing how to disassemble and make an inspection, right? It doesn't have to be a 3D model, it could be data. So for instance, let's say you're doing an inspection and part of the inspection is to check tire pressure, right? So imagine looking at the tire and seeing a digital readout on top of the tire of exactly what that tire pressure is. So that's augmented reality, digital overlay. Now, virtual reality immerses you in a virtual world. So you're no longer standing in front of that real tractor, brake, or tire. You're in a virtual shop. You see a virtual tractor, virtual brake, and you can even interact with all those virtual parts, but none of it's actually real, right? And so secondly, the devices are different. So virtual reality requires a headset. And augmented reality, while it can be presented in a headset, as I just explained, it's also available on mobile devices like phones and tablets. And recently, through web technology, you can even get it on your laptop as well. So those are sort of the main differences folks should be aware of.
Yeah, and I've seen people using their smartphone and just looking through the screen at something, and it's using, I guess it's using the camera, and then it's projecting a representation of whatever it is. That would be classified as augmented reality.
That's right. I'm sure many of folks that'll listen here may even have kids that have played the Pokemon Go game. That's an example, right? It's very, very simple, but that's exactly right. And then this last week, I had a boy show me an app on his phone that allowed him to navigate using Google Maps, and it was putting augmented reality instructions directly in front of his phone. But it's the camera on the phone or the tablet that is really the enabler. And as those start to progress, more capabilities are becoming available to companies like us to deliver value to the folks in this industry. Yeah.
I imagine the widespread application of 5G technology will also probably enhance our ability to use all these tools, because it's going to give us greater bandwidth. Is that true?
Oh no, absolutely right. The content that one wants to create for applications like this can actually be pretty intensive, right? Big files. I mentioned 3D models were often created by the original equipment manufacturers who got this model of a brake and it's got a certain size. So how are you actually going to view something that might be in the cloud? Well, you need a good connectivity to be able to do that. Right. And 5G is just another one of those big enablers. And frankly, I think it's going to be something that empowers this technology to really become pervasive, because I don't know how many people don't have a smartphone these days, even one that's capable of augmented reality, right? So 5G will become available. The technology will be in the hands and in the pockets of all technicians across a company's enterprise.
Yeah, and I don't think people fully grasp the exponential jump that going from 4G to 5G will be. And the best way that I've heard it explained is the length of time it takes you to download a movie today on 4G. You'll be able to download 20 movies on 5G. So it's like this huge jump up. So I see how with the demands of data required for the augmented or virtual reality, that 5G is that kind of linchpin that's probably going to kick the whole thing wide open. Now, you've talked about everything from video games to Google Maps. Tell us the story of how your company settled on one of the niches that you focus on, which is the trucking industry.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story, really. We've got a long history of developing augmented and virtual reality, right? Training solutions in particular. And a lot of that work has been done in collaboration with the different agencies in the Department of Defense, the Army, Navy, the Air Force, and we do continue to do a lot of that. And in fact, a lot of the work that we do over there allows us to bring it to other industries like trucking. But many of the technicians in that market actually make a transition to become technicians in manufacturing, aerospace, and of course, trucking logistics. And we wondered, though, whether the problems that we saw within the Army, Navy, et cetera, are similar to those that are happening, let's say, in the trucking industry. If they were, it would present an opportunity. And that's exactly what was happening. Just like many industries, we saw, that knowledge exodus. You sort of let off with it at the beginning here. And as these expert technicians, they retire, the knowledge walks out the door. And we thought, man, there's got to be a way to capture that and then rapidly share it. And if that's something that's helped solve a problem, then could we use augmented reality to not just share that information, but could we share better, more effective information? So we've been creating this augmented reality solution that allows any expert to rapidly share their knowledge with their entire workforce. And in the trucking industry really was no exception to this need. In fact, it had some key characteristics that we felt made for a perfect fit. First, there's often a central function that creates training, standard procedures, and distributes these technical service bulletins. Second, technicians are spread across many facilities, in some cases hundreds of facilities, depending on the organization. Third, fleets, OEs, independent repair shops, they attempt to collaborate on training and repair procedures. But it's very, very difficult to get information out rapidly and in a way that ensures standardization across the fleet's footprint. Again, a problem that we saw with our military clients as well. And then lastly, technicians are very hands-on, and our solution provides that hands-on heads-up support. So you add all that together, it just seemed like the right fit. And other industries, of course, are experiencing a similar exodus of talent, but it's specifically those characteristics that we thought made a great fit for what we were doing. And it's why we entered into the trucking industry.
Okay, so what I'm understanding about the actual software that you provide. So right now we're using software called StreamYard that enables me to live stream. But if I didn't come on and organize this show and invite you, and we didn't have an outline that we prepared ahead of time, and if we didn't show up, nothing's going to happen. The software is a blank slate. Sure. You've got to add the content. Is that kind of how it is with your system, where you're providing the company with the ability to do this, but then they have to go and make the content?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's accurate. It's a platform first. It does provide an instructor-led and self-guided feature, and we have a tool that's available in the cloud, a basic website that allows an instructor, an expert, or however you might classify them, to create a training module. Now that could be a stepwise procedure, perform A before you perform B, or it could be a series of topics, and they put that into that system, and at the click of a button, it's made available to every technician instantaneously, either on headsets if the company's invested in that, or on their mobile devices that we've discussed previously. And then they can choose, do I want them to follow those in a self-guided manner, step by step on their own, or do they want to have an instructor live stream as you were doing today? The big difference is they'd have a headset on, and I would be seeing what you're looking at or what they're looking at. And a great example, we have a client that decided they were going to focus on an air disc brake, and they wanted to take their technicians in the pit underneath the tractor. Now, if you run a live class, right, you can't do that with 16 technicians. They're not going to follow you down there. And even if they tried to, even if you had a training aid with something on a stand, right, it's very hard for everyone at once to clamor over each other and actually see what's going on. But from a first-person perspective, imagining like that sort of GoPro feed, everybody can see exactly what you're looking at, what your hands are doing. And so that the instructor-led portion of the software allows them to do that. So in combination, yeah, they create the content, they click a button to make it available, an instructor can run a class, or the technicians can actually download that same procedure and walk through it themselves. So it really empowers them not just to create it themselves, but ultimately deploy it in multiple different fashions.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Now, when diagnostic software and devices came into the industry roughly around, let's say 2010, and I know that the trucking industry went through kind of a growing pains adopting this technology. There was a lot of technicians that were struggling with it. Is this something that is easy for companies who maybe aren't the most sophisticated with technology to be able to adopt? And how does that impact new and then you've got that range of technicians, new and experienced? How do you integrate this and make it work in let's say a fleet with 300 units and they run a couple of their own repair shops?
Yeah, it was probably the most important thing that at the very beginning we set out to accomplish was this had to be extremely easy to use. Flat out, they needed to be able to sit down, they being, let's say, the person creating the content, and they needed to be able to use it. And then on the other side, the person that's going to download that content needs to very rapidly be able to open it up, see it, and interact with it. That was basically job one. Right. We understood who we were delivering it to. Like you said, it may not be as tech forward as an industry as some others are. And that needed to be a primary responsibility. And I've got a fantastic team. I like to think that the designers, the folks that work on the user experience are second to none. And I think we really hit the mark on that. And I would say that right now, the gentleman that handles our implementation and walks people through, the trainer, is able to show people how to create content in less than an hour, making them proficient at that. And it's as simple as creating a PowerPoint slide or crafting an email and adding an attachment. We actually use those as inspirations that if people can actually type into an email, then it should be that simple. That's what they do every day. Let's not make it any more complex. And so that's exactly what we did. The second part of your question, though, is whether or not this applies to both new and experienced technicians, right? And we believe technicians really of any experience level can benefit. So new hires obviously can be introduced to standard procedures, and in fact, you can accelerate their competency using Augmentor. They've never seen something, never performed something before, maybe received one training lesson, just came out of a tech school, and now you're getting up to speed faster because they're following the instructions they've been given step by step. But better yet, every single new hire is doing it, and they're following the exact same thing, potentially heads up and hands-free, or able to access something on their mobile device. But let's qualify experienced technicians for a second here. They've been performing their job for years, right? And there's always going to be a bulletin that comes out. It changes the procedure. So it's hard for a tech who's been doing something for 15 years to all of a sudden change on a dime. So they get they have to rely on their extensive knowledge that they've been doing it forever. But there's always going to be something new. Like vehicles are coming, or here, really, autonomous vehicles on their way. You name it. It's going to dramatically increase the complexity of the job. So the training benefits everyone. And as these fleets are trying to deploy this new technology, they need people to repair them. They need people to service them. And it's extremely important that they get the repair right the first time. Otherwise, they see those comebacks. So getting sure that whether it's coast to coast or even just within your few facilities, everybody's doing it all the same way. It allows them to sort of track exactly what's going on, diagnose the root cause of why something's not working. And you have to do that, with the experienced or the new hires. We also found, frankly, that the classroom feature that we have that allows an instructor to live stream what they're doing is very powerful if put in the hands of an experienced technician, because now that experienced technician who no longer seems to have the time available to mentor the new hires can actually capture what they're doing when they solve a problem. You rely on this guy. You say, hey, this truck has been down. I need you to go to the shop. I need you to help get this thing back up and running. But now they can capture exactly how they did it. Create a video, create a step-by-step procedure. You review it, and then you send it out, and your new technicians are able to benefit from that. So if that thing pops up again, you don't need to send that experienced tech out to do it, all over again. You've now empowered others that are out there. So we think it not only empowers everyone, it's applicable to everyone, but it gives these experienced techs a way to share exactly what they do, very quickly, frankly, without having to travel all the time. So let their knowledge travel, not the person, right?
Right. So systemization, scalability. One of the things that I know when I was planning the heavy duty parts report, I interviewed a lot of different people just to get a feel for what people would need and want from the show. And one thing we heard over and over again is that the dealership groups have all the resources, and the independent service channel kind of are their little islands all by themselves, and they struggle to get access to good quality resources. Is this something that is cost prohibitive that really only a big dealership group could implement, or is this something that an independent repair shop or a fleet that does their own maintenance could incorporate in their business model and actually help them?
Oh, this has been designed, I would say, as an ecosystem to connect the entire industry, right? So while it's true that you've got a client that might have thousands of technicians, it's absolutely applicable for those that might only have a few shops. And one of the reasons for that is that this industry in particular all sort of comes together, right? Like, let's just take a particular make and model of a truck. The OEM has put together standard procedures for how to maintain that. They're always a reach back mechanism for a fleet, even an independent repair shop that is now on behalf of fleets having to service that same make and model, and maybe a heck of a lot more. So they're reliant on that OEM. The fleet is then relying on, let's say their dealer network or the independent repair shop to help them perform things and troubleshoot. We see it all the time. So we built the system specifically to allow organizations like an OE or an independent repair shop to either, run their own live training, share content between one another. Now, is it cost prohibitive? I think that that's an assumption that some make. And a lot of what drives that is, in the news, you'll see a large organization, common brands that are out there that everybody's familiar with, announces that they just invested in a headset for all of their technicians. Everyone's going to get one. We're training them on it. If you just think for a moment, let's say that organization has 1,000 technicians, right? And they've got a 20% turnover rate. Just the sheer cost involved in training those people and the churn associated with keeping them proficient at the software is actually quite high. And not everybody could do that. So what we built was was something that allowed people to flip the script, right? Forget putting a headset on ahead of every technician. Put it on one expert. Let that one expert create a training module and live stream it onto devices like our laptops here today that everybody can see. So with a very minimal time investment, a very reasonable cost investment, right? A cost associated with this, you are now able to make an impact on everyone. One person impacts everybody. It's kind of like you're streaming here today, right? I mean, it's just you are running the show. I'm talking to you, but there could be all kinds of people that are going to benefit not just from what we're doing here, but the video that will come afterwards. And it was the same approach. That's what we wanted. And then when a company says, hey, this really worked, but I'd love to get those procedures in the hands of the everyday technician all the time, heads up, they now have the maturity and an internal champion that'll allow them to move that company through that path. And we'll be there every step of the way for them, right? So It's
So
not
you've
cost
talked,
prohibitive.
right. So you talk about live stream, and then
Yep.
it's made available on demand as part of like a content library after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
That's
the
how it
more
works.
you do it, the bigger the content library becomes,
That's right.
the more content is there, and
Yep.
the more it can help people going forward. Even people who were hired a year later could go
Yep.
back and watch what was
Oh,
formerly a live stream.
yeah, and they'll always have access to the the procedures that are on the phone, the tablets, the headsets, etc., and the power of having partners, right? So if you make a digital connection with an OE, let's say an OE is out there and they've put together a training module on fifth wheel lubrication, right? Something simple like that, seemingly simple like that. They make it available. They use that one module for all of their customers, right? You now make a digital handshake in our software, and every one of your technicians have that. You didn't have to create it. So, even someone who assumes that the load on their own training department might be high to create this, have to consider that there's other folks in your network that might be using this software and then can collaborate and share. So there's also the sharing piece of it as well. Yeah.
Let's talk about economic impact, because you talked about that there might be this perception that it would be cost prohibitive, but the
Yeah.
reality is that the training costs and the turnover is costing shops huge amounts of money. And we've had other guests on the show that have kind of articulated just how much that can cost. And so when I look at that, as you've been working with different companies in the trucking industry, what has been the economic impact of implementing this software into their business?
I guess maybe we look at it sort of twofold here. So a fleet can perform something like an air disc brake, right? And they see a spike, let's say, in comebacks associated with the procedures, related to that part. The cost of the parts, labor, and even their opportunity cost is all going to go up because the tractor's just sitting in that shop. Now, you follow a standard procedure, you get that repair done right the first time, and you're going to see costs decrease, right? And that's okay if you're relying on somebody that you trust has been doing it for a while. Let's say you have a mentor that's there. But what this software enables is, whether it's a headset or on your phone, this is the exact procedure that you need to follow. Step 1, step 2, step 3, right? You do that, you get it right, you prevent the comeback. We've got one firm that expects to see a $1 million decrease in brake service costs alone, simply because they're able to get it right the first time, right? So there's that. Secondly, there's even the cost associated just with training folks, right? Not even just doing the task. So one organization told us that it costs approximately 8 to 12 techs, about $15,000 to train them at a central training event. Air, hotel, food, facility rentals, lost productivity because you pulled them off. Instead, you live stream from that facility. You use this Classroom XR that we have, and instead of 8 to 12 techs that you reach, you're going to reach 100 techs, maybe even more, all at once. You do that 3 times. One firm calculated could probably save close to $400K on their annual training budget. And even though they said, look, I worked for years to get that budget. I don't necessarily want to lose it because I'm saving it. I'm going to reallocate it. I'll run more classrooms, maybe buy a couple other headsets and get another couple experts in here. So that could potentially be a huge impact on an organization as well. But the best part really is that you really only need that one headset, right? Remember when I said that AR works on headsets? Most firms investigating it think they have to put it in the hands of every technician, but as I mentioned before, they really don't. So when you flip that script and you put one headset on one instructor, you can still train an extremely high number of techs at once, right? So with that reasonable investment up front, you make a tremendous economic impact, right?
Yeah. And this isn't just applicable to repair technicians. The parts business is going to be able to use this as well. How do you identify a part? Having one instructor go through step by step and then streaming it out. If you've got 250 stores, well, you've probably got 1,000 parts technicians working for you, and you can train them all with just one headset. So it's amazing.
Absolutely. And so in some of those facilities, even in the retail sector, they provide services to, I'll say general public, but to consumers. And those people need training as well. What part is it? How do I install it? They do problem solving in real time directly in front of them, because the moment that you open up that hood or go underneath the truck, it's, you're presented with something you might not have seen before, right? And to be able to access information, to rely on the training that you received, I think could be hugely instrumental in that
and
area.
even to attract digital natives to be able to say, look, we have this training, you're going to be able to use your smartphone. People, I mean, this is going to attract the younger generation, which is important because they do not want to enter into fields that aren't using technology.
Oh, absolutely. And they'll already understand the technology. We mentioned before that years ago, some of these games came out. They've been playing these games forever. I mentioned the boy that showed me the navigation tool on his phone, unprovoked. He just sort of showed it to me. So we know that the next generation is already using this technology. We know that the price of some of these devices are allowing parents to use them as birthday and Christmas gifts. They're in people's houses right now. So they're going to show up at work, you're going to show them a device, and they likely will already know how to use it. And of course, they're going to be native on their digital phone, smart tablet, things like that. So there's no question the next generation is going to be there. Investing in this kind of technology, it's going to be seamless for those folks coming up as well. Yeah.
You've been watching the Heavy Duty Parts Report. I'm your host, Jamie Irvin, and we've been speaking with Matthew Johnston from Design Interactive. If you'd like to learn more about what we've been talking about today, go to goaugmentor.com. Links are in the show notes on whatever platform you are on. If you want to watch the replay of this will be made available on heavydutypartsreport.com in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it, Jamie. Thank you very much.
All right, so we will see you on the other side. Hey, don't leave though, because I want to talk to you off air. All right, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show. So that brings to the close another one of our live streams. Next week, we're going to have a returning guest from Rev HD. We're going to be talking about a new wheel end product that they have developed, and so I'm really excited about that. So tune in next Friday. We're going to have Brian from Rev HD back on the show talking about wheel end. You have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.